How's it going, guys? Mike Murtis, Gamer Logic, and today I wanted to talk about a game I finished over the weekend on the Nintendo 3DS, the new Nintendo 3DS, actually. Funny enough, though, even though I am playing on the latest version of the great DS system, I wasn't playing a new 3DS compatible game, or at least a game that would take advantage of the new features that the new 3DS has to offer. No, instead, I'm catching up on a series that has had a bunch of games come out for it on the DS. I believe it was 3 games, and that game is Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. Finally deciding to play these games made me think that even though Castlevania is one of my favorite franchises, it is one I've kind of abused playing in the last 10 years, especially in the Iga era of Castlevania games. Symphony of the Night came out. It's absolutely one of my favorite Castlevania games. It's absolutely one of my favorite games, period. And with these other games that came out, the 3 on Game Boy Advance and the 3 on the DS, you would think that I would be more interested in playing them. But I can remember being at a mall with my buddy Joe and looking over at KB Toys, and I don't remember if Game Boy Advance just launched at that point, or if I saw that it was available. But we went over to the KB Toy store, and I happened to have the money. I think we were picking up stuff for homecoming, and I remember going in there and seeing Castlevania and seeing the Game Boy Advance and having the money, and went, oh, I'm just going to go pick that up. So I picked it up, and I remember the van ride home. It was pretty dark in the van, and the game was pretty dark. Not a good way to first play the original Game Boy Advance. I think that was something that really bothered me at that point. It was like, we've been through the Game Boy, we've been through the Game Boy Color, now we got the Game Boy Advance, and we still need a good source of light to play this thing. That kind of sucks. But I took it home. I remember playing it, Castlevania Circle of the Moon, a little bit, and being unimpressed with how muddy and dark the game was. And I didn't really finish it. I didn't get very far in it at all. So it wasn't until Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance that I was addicted to a Castlevania game on that portable platform. That is the one and only one I've finished. And years later, I've picked up the following sequel, Aria of Sorrow, I believe, that was on the GBA. Never played it. And I've had a couple of the Castlevania DS games. I had Order of Ecclesia, I believe is the way to pronounce it, but that was it. I thought I had more when I was looking at my collection. I realized I don't have Portrait of Ruin, and I don't have the other game that was in the series that was a sequel to Aria of Sorrow. I think that was Dawn of Sorrow, if I remember correctly. I'm doing this right off the top of my head, folks. But yeah, going through all that, I decided that it's time to go through and play through the rest of the Iga era Castlevania games. And for whatever reason, I decided to start with Portrait of Ruin. So what are my thoughts? This is, as far as I know, since I haven't played the other DS entries into the series, this is one of the first ones that really feature a 2-character simultaneous play mode, in a sense, where you can swap characters on the fly, almost like Castlevania 3, but it's a little bit smoother. You can have both characters on the screen at once. You can do attacks together. You can do combo attacks together. And there's a lot of portions in the game that you need to be able to utilize both characters' strengths and weaknesses to get through portions of the game and get through portions you normally can't get to with the use of a single person. Like, for example, there's a power you can get fairly early into the game that will let you jump on the head of your partner, and then jump up again. And of course, these powers get made obsolete through other accessories and equipment that you can get, but it's a neat little system. And it's neat how, if you're playing one character, the other character, if she takes damage or he takes damage, they'll take damage via the magic meter that's in the game. So I enjoyed that feature. I thought it was neat. I thought it was pretty unique. I guess if you have two copies of the game. A friend of yours has a copy of the game. You can actually play legitimate co-op from what I understand on there. There was also a Wi-Fi shop that, because you can't emulate Wi-Fi with a 3DS, you can't use it on any old DS software. So I'm not really sure what that was. From some of the stuff I read on FAQs, I guess it was an easier way to get items that weren't really accessible by the merchant in the main game. But overall, I believe I finished it in 7-8 hours. I enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the characters, Charlotte and Jonathan. Charlotte is... I don't think she really has any sort of legacy to Castlevania. She may have a little bit of a tie to the magician, the sorceress in Castlevania 3, but I'm not 100% sure positive. But I do know that storyline-wise, it takes place after Castlevania Bloodlines, so it's kind of a sequel to that game, if you will. You play as the son to John Morris, Jonathan Morris, hopefully that's correct. And he has the vampire killer. He has the famous whip used by the Belmonts. So you play as the son of the character from Bloodlines. But the interesting thing is that he cannot use the vampire killer to its full power. And that's kind of the mystery in the game, as you figure out how you can actually unlock the power of the whip in this game. And as it turns out, at least not right away, it's not a quest to defeat Dracula. Someone else has actually taken over the castle and has sealed off Dracula's throne room to keep that power from ever awakening, but just using the rest of the power of the castle to his own evil needs. And that is the vampire lord Brunner. So he's kind of your main foe that you're fighting against, as well as his two daughters in the game that actually turn out to be pretty important characters later on. Now, rather than the game being like Symphony of the Night, where you're just going through one big castle, you'll do that in Portrait of Ruin. But, and here's the reason why it's called Portrait of Ruin, is there's various portraits littered across the castle. And these are the power source of the Vampire Lord Brunner's power. And this is what is kind of keeping the castle in check against Dracula's power, but it's using it to a degree. Now, each one of these portraits basically takes you to whatever's kind of drawn in the portrait. So, and this sounds weird, but it's actually pretty cool. You'll enter a portrait that looks like it takes place in Egypt, and another one that will take place in something that looks like Old Town London. There's also another portrait that'll take you to this almost weird bombed out city that almost looks like it has like a weird carny circus has moved into it. And you'll go through and you'll find all the different power items that are in these different portraits, and you'll fight the boss that of course lurks in these portraits as well to progress further in the game, all while building your levels and getting new equipment and building up your skills. The boss battles I thought were fairly challenging, some easier than others. Some, if you know what attacks to spam using your partner, you could get through pretty easy. Some of them requires a little bit of thinking. Like, for example, there is a Medusa boss in the game that can petrify you. She was petrifying the crap out of me, and I'm trying to break out of the stone and everything, and I'm like, why can't I avoid this attack? So I start looking around, trying to find some kind of item that will help against being petrified. Finally, I realized, if I don't look at her when I'm being petrified, like the Legend of Medusa, I probably won't get petrified. And sure enough, I looked away from her when she was about to do that attack, and I didn't get petrified, so it made it a hell of a lot easier. So it makes you think. And eventually, when you do get to the final boss, which does end up being Dracula, spoilers, I'm so sorry, it's a fun battle, especially because you're fighting Dracula and Death at the same time, and it makes good use of the partner system. But overall, I definitely enjoyed the game. There were some grindy parts to it, but I had fun with it. The boss battles were fun, and I really liked the unique two-partner system in it. It's a shame I didn't play it along with people that had it back when the original DS was out, because it would have been fun to play the two-player mode. I gotta wonder, can you use the two-player mode now that the 3DS doesn't really support wireless with the original DS? It's kind of interesting. But overall, if you're a fan of Castlevania or you really haven't given any of the DS titles a try, I would definitely recommend Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. I'm going to be trying the other two. Obviously, because I haven't played the third one on GBA, I really shouldn't play its sequel. I'm probably going to end up playing Order of Ecclesia. But overall, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, worth checking out. Thanks, guys.